Eric Burgess here with Music Marketing TV. Today we're going to be talking about Obscurium and 4 steps you can use to do sound design in Obscurium. All right, so this is where we're going to stop. We have a pretty cool patch, something that could easily go into an entire track. And with the filter now, it could really just evolve and grow until we hit something big. So the drums feel a little bit abrupt, but here is where we are going to put a pin in it. Because I don't know about you, but for me, I would open this and I'm just not used to working with a synth that's so feature rich based around a sequencer. It was a little bit of a thing for me because I like to write out patterns in my DAW and work that way. So this was like, oh my goodness. So I came up with a larger strategy and I began to experience quite a bit more success. So first off, this is like the pre-step. You need to know what kind of sound you want to make. So in this one, we're going to go for making a kind of a chord sequenced kind of thing. I think that would be a cool thing. Should also note, I already assume you are relatively familiar with Obscurium. There's a number of videos made by the official Sugar Bytes channel that covers all the details that you would ever want to know about it. And they also have an excellent manual. So I'm assuming you already know stuff on how Obscurium works. You're looking more to do some sound design at this point and actually use it. So step one for real is selecting our sources. So since I know I want to do things with chords, I'm not too interested here in this noise guy. So I can actually just turn it off. What I'm going to do is I'm also going to just make sure it's like off just all the time. That way it's just not a question, it's just off. So I don't need to worry about that. I will be using the effects because not the FX. I'll be using the FM because the FM seems like a nifty source, something that we could potentially use for timbre. I'll also be using the analog oscillator. So we're going to be using those two oscillators, and that is our first step. So we're already there. So far, not the most exciting sound. That's our sound. So step number 2 is to pick a sequence. A lot of the times when we do this, we sort of let it ring out at the default sequence, and by considering a rhythm beforehand, this can really help. I'm thinking about using swing. I'm kind of up in the air. But what I want to do is I'm going to come down here to these guys and I'm going to go ahead and first I'm going to do every first 16th note. So beat 1, beat 2, beat 3. Maybe I'll do something special on this one. So we have 1, 2, 3, and then 4. I'll do something. And then you know what? I'm just going to loop through those trigger points. So now we have our loop and we are good to go. Now, if we play this, so what's going to happen is it's going to continue to modulate through the rest of whatever we're going to do here. That's what this top one's going to do for us. But this bottom one is going to play the rhythm that we wanted. So our trigger pattern will be the same. And also we need to come up here to the envelopes and we want to use the ARP envelope so that when we push a note, it will only go through these. So now when we play our note, I think that's pretty rad. So, okay, that's what we have. Now on our poly, we want our poly up and let's go ahead. And since I know I want to do things with chords and we're already doing, I have skipped explaining the next step. So step number 3 is to begin to establish your basic timbre. So now that we've selected our rhythm and we've given that some thought, it's going to be a lot easier to begin to set up a basic timbre. So if we were making drums, we would begin to go towards the kick. If we were making hi-hats, we could do that. Those sorts of things. So let's go ahead. Let's do that. Now for poly, I want to bring this up. So I'm just going to go ahead and raise this up some. And then we're going to come over here to chord. And I think it sort of makes sense to change a chord every beat. Since we're only triggering on these beats, I'm going to come down here to 1 and begin to screw around with our various chord options. So let's come over here. Let's just play. Let's actually start at the very bottom. All right, one other thing in our arpeggiator, we got to come in here and tell it that we're chill with chords. So right now, the arpeggiator is going to be playing up broken chords and picking notes. We want to let it know we're cool with playing the whole chord. So there we are. So now we're getting whole chords out. How great is that? So I'm going to push down an octave here, just so I'm in a more reasonable range. And let's go ahead and begin to go back to the chords and pick out some different chords. So let's start out with just a basic thing here. And let's pick out a cool riff. I'm just going to sort of select chords here. And it's going to trigger through. So this will continue to pick chords. So we can duplicate our pattern. We can make something similar to this over here, or we can come up with something entirely different. You know what? I'm going to bring this in, and we're just going to work with these first 4 beats. And so there we go. Now, finally, our last step is to then create interesting modulations on the sound. So we have a basic sound setup, but it would be really cool now if we began to add things like effects, basic modulations, perhaps alter things. So let's go ahead and let's do that. Now, we have this sync frequency. I want this down for the most part, but I think right here on the this last couple beats, we're going to go ahead and bring that up a bit. Let's bring it up quite a bit. And also let's come into our mix, and this is going to affect the analog oscillator. So let's go over to our mix one. I'm not sure what these are like officially called. I guess we'll call them just the parameters. So we'll go over to our mix parameter, and we'll sort of meld down more to the analog side. And this one, I guess we'll start out more FME. I think that would be kind of cool. So just kind of like a line. And now let's mess with this a bit more and see, maybe get a cooler sound right there. Oh yeah, I like that. That little kind of a thing. For our pulse width, let's go ahead and mess with that, see what that has to offer us. Oh, I quite like that. Now let's toss some effects on there. So I'm going to bring the reverb up. And the delay up just a smidge. So we're going to move our ratio down. And what we're going to do is we're going to use the FMX, which I believe stands for matrix. And this is going to do basically control the ratio for us. That's how I choose to picture it. I'm not sure if that's like officially, like technically what it's doing. We're going to move this around. Oh yeah, I kind of like where we're going now. Let's go over to our envelope. And let's make this ring out quite a bit longer. Now, I think it would be super rad. I'm going to go down another octave here. No, I like where we were. I think it would be super rad to toss a chorus on this. So let's go ahead. Let's mess with that. And let's come in to the cutoff, and I would like to modulate this, but I would like to do so with the LFO. So I'm going to bring the LFO in. And let's move the cutoff values somewhere in the middle. And you see the LFO is very, very slow. So we're going to come over here to our modulators. We're going to grab the LFO, and we're going to move this around. And I'm also going to connect this up to the mod. So what that is going to do is it's going to move the LFO over time. Again, I'm just following step 4. I want to create some interesting variation as the sound proceeds. So I think that is pretty cool. I might have to tone back that FM stuff. But okay, so that's pretty cool. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sort of bring this down over here. Pen tool, please listen to me. There we go. So I'm just going to select some different speeds here. Actually, let's go with just this paintbrush looking tool, and it'll just randomize it for us. So let's go with something like that. All right, maybe not that crazy. We'll do the slower stuff. Okay, now let's come back over here to the FM matrix and sort of tone it back here. And let's go to, we'll stick with steps of 4. And sort of pick set textures so that we don't have so much jumping around. Now for our clock, I think we're moving a bit quick. So I'm going to bring our clock back to 8th notes, maybe even longer, let's see. Just try in the middle. Let's try adding some swing. All right, cool. So let's write in a note now. I think we're pretty ready. So I'm just going to put it in on C. And so let's just play this. We need, since Obscurium is going to handle most of this stuff, we're going to need a very long note. We'll go for 4 bars. And what we're going to do now is I'm just going to look for a cool loop to stick underneath it. And there you go. Just by following those 4 steps, which were first, we already had an idea of what kind of sound we wanted to pick. The first step was we picked our sound generators. Then we considered a rhythm. Then we made a basic texture, and then we made that texture more interesting by changing it dynamically, considering musical things, looking at modulators, and so on. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to find a cool loop and stick it underneath. We could make this with Obscurium as well, but I would like to just sort of dig through the loops and see what we got there, you know? So let's do that. All right, so now that I've got some drums going on here, I've adjusted the rhythm a little bit, and I've also brought the tempo back up here to 16th notes. Triplets, I knew were going to be weird as soon as I started messing with the drums. I was like, oh yeah, I picked sort of a weird timing thing. So went ahead, changed that back, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to mess with the texture a little bit further now that I've got some feedback with the drums and see if I can't create something that I really like. So I've adjusted the mod to get a rhythm that I enjoy a little bit more with the filter. Now I'm going to experiment with additional chords that I could screw around with. Okay, so now I'm pretty happy with where the patch is. Let's go ahead and toss an EQ on there and sort of bring this up and down, or a filter, and just bring it up and down with the track. All right, so this is where we're going to stop. We have a pretty cool patch, something that could easily go into an entire track. And with the filter now, it could really just evolve and grow until we hit something big. So the drums feel a little bit abrupt, but here is where we are going to put a pin in it. And that's that. If you have any questions, let me know. Subscribe and hit the bell for future videos, and have a blessed day.